Hey guys, I hope y'all had a good weekend. I know I did. Chris and I took a 2-day road trip to Oklahoma to see my oldest nephew graduate, so that was exciting. In this video, we're going to find out though if I was able to stay meat focused so that my health remained a top priority. And I thought I'd take you guys with me. All right, so the route we take to get from where we are at in West Texas to Oklahoma is not very scenic, but you should be seeing some of the traveling as I talk here, guys. We left Friday afternoon, and I packed a meal for us to eat on the way to Oklahoma. That way, when we got there, we didn't have to worry about trying to find a place to eat that would accommodate how we eat. So, as you can see in this picture right here, I've got eggs and bacon. Very plain, very simple, just some boiled eggs and some bacon. The mountain bacon is a full package of bacon, and there is 6 boiled eggs. And that took care of my meal for that day. Chris, he had the same. He had the boiled eggs and the bacon, and then he also had some ham and salad when we got to my mom's house, which is where we stayed for the couple of nights. Is at my mom's house. So we had something a little later, a little more, but otherwise that's what we had for that day. And then we didn't do much that Friday. When we got there, we just kind of fellowshiped with my mom a little bit that evening before we went to bed. And the next day was a really long day. It's Saturday, and that's the day of graduation. The graduation where he was set to graduate was actually 2 hours away from where we was at in Oklahoma City. So we took off there. Graduation supposed to have started at 2:45. They were late starting, so we was actually outside in the sun, standing in line for about 15 minutes, which we personally appreciated because that extra allowed me to get some sun in where I wasn't able to because we was on this trip. So I just rolled up my sleeves of my shirt and took advantage of the sun while standing outside. But it was concerning for my mom because it was hard on her to stay standing. So there was a moment where I took her back to the car so she could sit down while we waited in line to get in. But having said that, Friday we ate our meal. That was the boiled eggs and the bacon about 1:30 that afternoon. So that's when I ate. Okay. And so you know how it is, we use food as a celebration, and graduation is no different. So my nephew picked where he wanted to eat for his graduation dinner. And so it was probably about 5 o'clock in the afternoon when graduation was over that we went out to eat. And I had no idea really where we was going to go eat because it was his choice. But I told my sister, I said, well, don't worry about it. If he chooses something that we can't get anything at, that's no big deal. It's his graduation dinner. It'll be okay. Chris and I will just go someplace else afterwards and get something that we can eat. So it's not a big deal. But my nephew did choose a steakhouse. So that was helpful. He chose the Saltgrass Steakhouse. And so that's where we went. Now, here's what I had. And you can see it is a 12-ounce ribeye. The thickness of the ribeye was really good, and that's about the only positive thing I can say. That ribeye right there was $30.99. It did come with some huge broccoli, which I gave to Chris, so you don't see that on the plate because that's not what I ate. I did order a side of grilled shrimp for $9.50, and I got like 5 pieces of shrimp. I'm a penny pincher, so I was not happy with the pricing. But anyways, so guys, here's the thing. I almost messed up here at the restaurant because look, when I was looking at the menu, I knew I was going to want something more than just the steak. And I saw these appetizers, and they called them ranged rattlers. And it was jalapenos and shrimp with some jack cheese and cilantro. It comes with ranch dressing, but I just wouldn't have got the ranch dressing. And that's all it said. It didn't say anything about being breaded. So when the waiter came and I was asking them how they did their steaks to make sure they didn't do my steak in canola oil, I also asked how they prepared these ranged rattlers, and I'm glad I asked because usually if something breaded, it says so on the menu. It did not say this. He said, well, we fry them. I was like, fry them as in deep fry them? Because look, guys, if it's not breaded, there's no way they can deep fry that, or all the cheese and the fillings of the shrimp and everything would just float off into the grease, right? He said, yeah, it's breaded. And I said, oh, okay, well, never mind. I don't want, and that's why I went with the grilled shrimp for $9.50. So when you're out, even you got to be careful with what you're ordering. The menu did not say anything about breading, so I could have made a really big mistake there. Of course, I wouldn't have ate it, but I would have been really upset at a $14 loss, right there, just because the menu didn't mention it had breading. So always be careful, and always don't be afraid to ask your waiter or your waitress about how things are prepared. Your health is important, and I'm sure the waiters and waitresses don't mind you asking those questions. I mean, you're not being obnoxious, you're not being that customer. Your health's important. Take time to ask those questions, and it'll save you from making a mistake, right? Now, having said that, we ate a little after 5. By the time the food get there, it was closer to 6. That means I was at the 29 to 30 hour mark of being fasted, which is fine. I could have, but in my mind, I had already settled that I was going to eat. That way, I could participate in Jacob's, graduation meal. And, so since I had mentally decided I was going to eat, I was like, man, I'm ready to eat. Can I get my food? I was saying that on the inside. I wasn't saying that out loud and making a scene or anything like that. I was just on the inside. I was like, I was ready to eat. And, I'm going to be honest, though, that ribeye and that shrimp did not quite get me filled. It satisfied me enough, but it wasn't quite eating too full, which is okay if you don't do that occasionally. Okay, just don't make that a habit. You need to eat until you're comfortably full, because this lifestyle is not about starving yourself. So that's what I had for that day. And for those of you who track your protein and macros, you might be thinking, well, yeah, that wasn't enough protein. Well, no, it probably wasn't for that day. But again, I don't eat that little every day. So it worked for that thing. I will say this. I woke up at 3:30 the next morning. I was hot and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I will say I've been having some sleep troubles the past few weeks. Only sleeping 3 to 4 hours at a time. And so it's been a real struggle. So it wasn't just because, it was there. I've been having some problems there anyways. So I'm up at 3:30 in the morning, and by 7 that morning, I'm already starting to think about food because I'm starting to get a little bit hungry, which makes sense because I wasn't fully satisfied at the meal the night before. I mean, I wasn't like starving, but I was starting to think about food where I usually don't. And so I was like, I'm going to have to eat something. We're going to have to leave earlier than what we usually do because we didn't plan on eating there in Oklahoma. We was going to wait to eat till we get back to Texas. And so we went on and packed up and left about 9:30 that morning because it's about a 4.5 hour trip. Unless I'm driving, I can make it a little shorter than that. Shh, don't tell Chris. No, he knows. But anyways, so we drive all the way back to Texas, and we get back home a little after 1 that afternoon. And our plan was this, because when you take a trip, do you really feel like cooking? No. So I ordered. We didn't really want to do another steakhouse, so we thought, well, we'll do a little different. So I ordered from this place called Rose's Cafe. It's a Mexican restaurant, and I was trying to go a little bit cheaper because that steak house dinner yesterday costed us, almost $100. And so I was like, well, let's try to go a little cheaper. So instead of getting the beef fajitas, which I usually would have got, I went on and just got their taco meat. So I ordered taco meat for us, a side of shredded cheese, a side of guacamole for Chris, and I did have a little of the guacamole. And then I got me a little side of jalapeno. So wasn't a carnivore meal, but it was still meat focused. Having said that, guys, now some of y'all are probably going to think when y'all hear this, you're like, well, Susan, that's obvious. They made it obvious, but to me, it wasn't obvious. I don't speak Spanish. On their menu, on their taco meat, I could see in the picture that it comes mixed in the meat, some green pepper. I don't know if it's red pepper or tomato, and what looked like onion to me, which that's what comes with your belt, or excuse me, the fajita meat. So I didn't think nothing of it. The menu did say, and if I mispronounce this, forgive me, but picadillo, something like that, taco meat. Well, I just thought maybe that was Spanish for taco meat. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. So I ordered it, not thinking nothing of it, right? But Chris gets the food while I'm unpacking our bags and everything, and he gets them home, and I'm like, you know what? I'll make us some tortillas, and I just took some shredded cheese, some of that shredded cheese that I ordered. That's why I ordered that shredded cheese, and took some eggs and mixed it together, blended it with a hand mixer, so it was really blended, not just mixed, and fried it in the skillet until it got a little crispier. And that's what we use as our tortillas. So we had tacos, right? Well, I sit down, I serve Chris first, and then I sit down and start to put my taco meat on my tortilla, and Chris is like, Susan, this has potatoes in it. And I'm like, what? And he's like, these are potatoes. Did you know that? And I'm like, no, they're not. That's onion. And I took one of those white pieces that look like onion, and I squished it in my fingers. Guys, this texture of potatoes. I didn't know that. And I Googled what that picadillo word is, and it was talking about a meat mixture with potatoes. And I'm like, oh, just come with potatoes. I couldn't believe it. So guys, I sat there and picked out all those little diced up potatoes out of my meat mixture. And I'm very confident I probably missed a few pieces. So I did eat a small amount of potatoes yesterday. I'm sure not enough to really throw me way out and increase my blood sugar crazy high. Because I did make sure I pulled out all that I could find. But that just means, yeah, we gotta be really super careful. I went by pictures like, oh, that's onion, and onions are kind of carb heavy anyways, but I wasn't too concerned. But yeah, I messed up on that one. I messed up. So now, even though it was a very small amount, I did have some potato, and but that wasn't intentional. I didn't mean to have that. So that just goes, it just reaffirms what I was saying about the steakhouse. You gotta be really, really, really careful when you're ordering out. Anyways, guys, the point being is you can remain meat focused and keep your health as a top priority when you're on a road trip. Don't let don't let your brain tell you, hey, it's vacation, or hey, it's a road trip. Hey, it's a graduation celebration. Cut loose, because you know what? Your illness, no matter what it is, diabetes, inflammation, some autoimmune disease, it doesn't take a break just because you're going to celebrate your nephew's graduation, or that you're just on a road trip with your husband somewhere. It doesn't take a backseat. It keeps going. And if you feed it wrong, it's going to flare up. All right. So always, always keep your health a priority. We only got one life to live, guys. My friends, it's been a pleasure. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye.